I think everyone would agree that draft is a pretty essential part of Deadlock esports, but does it belong in matchmaking? Hey everyone, this is Goopy. That's gonna take some getting used to, but today I want to talk about draft. In my mind, there's a pretty good chance that this matchmaking update next week actually does have draft. There's been a lot of great community discussion about it, including a post from Deathy I want to talk about, and I just kind of want to break down what draft could mean and if we should expect it next week. But before I get to that, and I usually would save this yap for the end, thank you all so much for the support with the new channel. I'm genuinely blown away by it. If I had had 100 subscribers yesterday, I would have been over the moon. Having over 800 subscribers today is truly, truly incredible. Thank you all so much for the support. It genuinely means the world to me. But back to business, let's talk about draft. So the reason I'm talking about this at the outset is because I do think there is a chance, like I said, the draft is added next week. We've covered some leaks far in the past, early Dead Unlocked days, about like a draft table being added, just like some game file stuff that led us to believe that draft could have been worked on at one point, or at least maybe suggested it. It also is just a necessary conversation because draft feels like it's inevitably going to come to Deadlock at some point. But I do think we need to pay attention if it is added next week, which we're going to talk about if it is, kind of the implications of that here in a second. But if it is added next week, I really do think that kind of signals us the kind of caliber update that this is, and also kind of the caliber update that the large content update that Yoshi has talked about could be. And so what I mean there is that, to me, I see next week's matchmaking update as going kind of one of two ways. One way would be kind of like a smaller, I don't want to call it underwhelming update, but like maybe there's just a rank reset, maybe they change around the ranks, but there's no real difference in the queuing system after next week's update. That would kind of change my expectations maybe a little bit for the itemization update, and maybe even the large content update, and maybe even the game's release, honestly. Like that, you know, what happens in these next three updates to me tells us a lot about Deadlock's kind of next few months. Now, on the flip side, and kind of where I and some people in the community are thinking this update could go, is let's say there's draft added, like a draft ranked mode. Let's say the current queuing system becomes unranked. Let's say there's like a rank reset. Maybe they change ranks. Maybe there's more visibility. If they're adding all that kind of stuff and it makes that big of a splash, that should really indicate to us that the itemization update could be really even just as significant, and that the large content update that Yoshi's talked about being in the future could be really, really significant. So just kind of framing the discussion, I think draft is very much on the table, but I do think that it's obviously not a guarantee. The implications of it are huge for the game though. So we've talked about whether draft could be added to the game. Now I feel like we should talk about if it should be added and kind of the implications if it is. So Deathy has a really interesting post that I kind of want to frame part of my discussion around, because I really agree with one point he makes, and I think it's a really interesting one, but I kind of disagree with another one he makes. So he said, let's talk about draft. If it does come out next week, I'm not convinced it will change much. In high rank lobbies, people will still essentially sweat, pick meta, but 90% of the player base will just pick whatever they want. There's no roles in Deadlock, so what's to prevent, you know, you getting a lobby with 4 people that want to farm, for example. That's the part I kind of disagree with. What I do agree with, rather, is this next point he makes. Basically, you know, he goes on to make a point that right now, the game's development and you know, the devs and like the structure of the game code right now is kind of what sorts lobbies. The way I think about this is the lobby construction is kind of on the shoulders of the devs right now, and they've been earnestly trying to improve this over the last several months. I think there was a post, it was probably a month ago or so, where Yoshi was asking folks to post screenshots of bad teams onto the forums. That way they can approve kind of their algorithm, so to speak, for forming proper lobbies. I think all of that work is going to continue in earnest for the unranked mode. Again, I really do think that the way you queue now will be the way you queue unranked Deadlock for a very long time. So I think devs are trying to get that structure in place now. The scary part though, is if you take that away, now all of a sudden lobby construction falls on the shoulders of the players, you know, in a draft, because they're going to be able to pick and ban, and like you could have these wacky teams that really don't make any sense. It could in some ways make games feel worse. And that, I think, is part of the point that Deathy's trying to make here. I think it's honestly a fair point and something we have to think about if like a draft ranked mode is announced. So let's kind of break down all this though, because I really do disagree with part of this. So he says basically 90% of the player base would just play whatever they want. And I'm like an Oracle Phantom-ish player, but I've been, you know, all the way, I've been down in Emissary and Ritualist before, was learning this game like so many people in 2025. I get the sense that there's like a good chunk of that player base outside of the Smurfs and the people that just don't belong in my games. When I'm playing a lot of time, it feels like people earnestly want to make good plays, make the right play, and are probably flex players. You know, I think a lot of people who play Deadlock in most ranks right now are probably flex players who play a lot of Street Brawl. Now, if you're an Eterna 6 player, maybe this is just not as relatable of a thing. There's different ways to approach this game competitively and casually. But I think even a lot of the large casual player base wouldn't go into a draft just like headstrong on playing Haze. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But I think that is an interesting piece of this discussion, is really that, like, I think most players, if you gave them a structured ranked mode with a structured draft, I think they would operate in the best interest of the team and would have even more of an inclination to do so than maybe they do now. And this gets to that second point, really, like the structure of the lobby and kind of, that falling on the shoulders of the players. I think that has a chance to create some volatile comps, some wacky comps. But I do also think that's kind of the beauty of the game, right? Like Popper's Pupils and Deadlock Esports just took down Melee Creeps a couple days ago with in the third match, a really non-traditional comp. Like there's no M1, and they honestly played really well with it. So I think we'll see shades of that in matchmaking. Some of it may not pan out the best, but I do think that a draft in a lot of times is going to be a beneficial thing, especially again, given the context that it's placed in a specific ranked mode where players know what they're signing up for. I do think there also could be like semi-structured solutions for this. So let's say there's a way, maybe you declare a broad role when you go to queue in this draft mode. Maybe I declare I want to play a bruiser kind of hero. Maybe devs gives you like 4 roles to choose from. Or maybe it's positions 1 through 6, who knows? Let's say I want to play like a frontline bruiser. So I'm telling the team and I'm telling the kind of search algorithm that I want to play like Billy, Victor, Abrams, Yamato, something like that, right? And so maybe they're going to queue me with maybe another person who wants to play a frontliner, one person that wants to play like a spirit nuker or spirit carry, one person that wants to play like a gun carry, a support, like a catch character, those kinds of things. Teams wouldn't be forced to play within those roles. If you wanted to deviate, maybe you get target banned or something. But like, I think even just some kind of a declaration of role is an idea where like we could put some structure into the queuing system without it being too restrictive. Overall, though, I would personally just be stoked for a draft. Not only for just, I would play a lot more of the traditional Deadlock mode right now, but also just for what it means to the game. I mean, like, I don't know, I was doing some reminiscing recently, and I was watching some old Dead Unlocked footage of like 2025 and some older clips, and the game has changed so much since then. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable to look back. Old Gods New Blood update is the result of a lot of that, but something like a draft just feels like one of those kind of equitable, huge steps that, I don't know, it gets me so excited for the future of the game. I'm sure devs will iron out the kinks there and figure out how to make this thing awesome. But if it does come to the game, I just genuinely am so excited. I will play a ton of ranked draft. But once again, as I close this, I just want to say thank you earnestly so much for the support again on the channel so far. It's been truly overwhelming. I've just been smiling the last day over this. I mean, I'm so stoked for the channel. And then you pair that with this like draft conversation, and I'm just so optimistic for the future, so excited for Deadlock, and I really do appreciate the support coming over. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. I mean, draft is one of those things you really can't have a lot of different opinions on, and they can all be valid. I have a lot of respect for Deathy, and I think his opinion on this is super valid. I think I've got some valid takes as well, but let me know what you think in the comments. Do you want draft? Do you not? Let me know why. But as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. See y'all next time.